No.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, September 12th, 2022, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Garden Successor Agency to the Community Development Commission. The meeting will now come to order at 6:17 p.m. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, please be advised that members of the Bell Garden Successor Agency may participate in today's meeting telephonically. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any agency member should have a conflict of interest virtually, please leave the room by muting yourself and turning off video. You may still continue listening to the meeting. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Leal and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Chief Fairfield. Agency Secretary, will you please call the roll of the successor agency?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Agency Mayor, Member Barcena,
Present.
Agency Member Cortez,
Present.
Agency Member Flores,
Present.
Vice Chair Chavez,
Present.
Chair Pulido.
Present. We're ready for you, Pastor Leal.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and all the councilmen and councilwomen, our chief and all the great staff from our city. It is always a high honor to present this meeting before the Lord. Psalms 27:1 says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Who should I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of who should I be afraid?" Let us pray and let us bow our heads. Father, we come before you. Father, I want to thank you for our mayor, for the councilmen and the councilwomen, all our great staff that works in our city, and all the people that are involved to make this meeting possible. May you be with them. May you be with us. May your grace, may your spirit, and may your wisdom be upon each one of them. So this meeting will be for your honor and for the great of all the citizens of Bell Gardens. Father, we ask this in the name of Jesus, and we can say amen.
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
We will now move to the first item on the agenda. Public participation is now open. Agency Secretary, will you please announce instructions for public participation?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the public who would like to have an opportunity to speak on items listed on the agenda, please state your name for the record before addressing your comments to the chair and agency members. Each speaker and written comment is limited to 3 minutes. Written comments will be read out loud after the speakers have been heard. Callers wishing to make a comment may do so at this time by dialing *9 from your phone. When instructed, dial *6 to unmute yourself. Individuals joining us through Zoom app may request to make a comment by using the raise hand feature on Zoom and select the unmute or microphone icon when instructed. Mayor and members of the council, or there are no comments at this time. No hands are raised, and we didn't receive any written comments for successor agency items.
Thank you. If there's no objection by the agency members, I will close public participation. We will now move to consent calendar. Any questions or comments? May I have a motion?
So moved, Cortez.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Agency Secretary, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Thank you. And just for clarification, it was motioned by Councilmember Cortez and seconded by Councilmember Barcena.
Yes.
Thank you. Agency Member Barcena,
Yes.
Agency Member Cortez,
Yes.
Agency Member Flores, Vice Chair Chavez,
Yes.
and Chair Pulido.
Yes. We will now move to public participation for non-agenda items. Public participation is now open. Agency Secretary, are there any speakers?
No, there are no members of the public who want to make a comment at this time.
If there's no objection by the agency, I will close public participation. Does any agency member wish to make a comment? If there is no objection by the successor agency, I will adjourn the successor agency meeting at 6:23 and call to order the city council meeting. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, September 12, 2022, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Garden City Council. The meeting will not come to order at 6:23. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, please be advised that the members of the Bell Garden City Council may participate in today's meeting telephonically. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any city council member should have conflict of interest, virtually please leave the room by turning off video and muting yourself. You may still continue listening to the meeting. City Clerk, will you please call the roll of the City Council?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Barcena,
Present.
Councilmember Cortez,
Present.
Councilmember Flores, Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Present.
and Mayor Pulido.
Present. We will now move to the presentation. City Manager, will you please introduce the presentations?
Thank you, Mayor Polito. The first presentation is by the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, commonly referred to as LASA. Their staff were kind enough to join us a few weeks back, but we weren't able to conduct the presentation for a number of reasons. So they're back to remind the council of what LASA does within the county, what LASA does specifically within the city of Bell Gardens. And at this time, I'll turn it over to LASA for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen shortly. Let's see. Can everyone see my PowerPoint presentation on full screen?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you so much and good evening, everyone. My name is Pablo Delara and I'm the Community Relations Coordinator at LASA. And joining me today is my colleague and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Kimberly Barnett. I'm the Associate Director at LASA for our Access and Engagement team, better known as our outreach teams.
And today we're going to deliver a quick overview of LASA. So to begin today's presentation, we're going to kind of define what LASA is. So LASA it's an acronym. It's the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and we are the lead rehousing agency serving people experiencing homelessness across the city and county of Los Angeles. So basically what that means is that we administer services, funding, system policies, and we shape best practices in partnership with providers to place our homeless neighbors into temporary and also permanent housing through a few things. So through outreach, shelter, and housing placements. So currently LASA coordinates services through what's called a continuum of care. The LACOC, covers all of Los Angeles County, with the exception of 3 cities, Glendale, Pasadena, and Long Beach. So total cities, we cover 85 incorporated cities in the county. So COCs are very critical in making sure that we can address homelessness through a regional approach, particularly in communities like LA, with there's so many overlapping jurisdictions. As the lead agency in the LACOC, LASA leads and coordinates the annual homeless point in time count that is required and mandated by HUD every year. Again, with the exception of Glendale, Long Beach, and Pasadena, these jurisdictions conduct separate counts and they add their totals to the LACOC for the final countywide numbers. So just to be clear, this is a regional tool that is best utilized as a snapshot of the issues in LA County at a point in time.
Progress.
And
This meeting is being recorded.
And it does not define the numbers today. So the data that's collected during the point in time, it helps us inform comprehensive policy and direct resources in response to the most emergent crisis of our time. Moving forward, we have a new vision and direction as LASA is refocusing its efforts to better serve the housed and unhoused people of the LA region. We are making currently significant changes on how the LA's rehousing system functions. So the limits of our authority, they have been discussed widely, as we've all heard. You know, this refocused vision, you know, really drives the changes in the areas that we can actually control, and it aims to end homelessness for more people faster. So the changes we are making will focus LASA on one central goal, which is to reduce unsheltered homelessness in LA County. We've worked with stakeholders across the county to begin changing how we can move people from, you know, sheltered to housed faster and more efficiently over the next 3 years. So by ending homelessness for our shelter neighbors faster, you know, we will actually free up more shelter beds and bring more of our unsheltered neighbors inside. So part of these changes currently, you know, we are, you know, building 4 core functions that drive our rehousing systems new vision. So first, we have by utilizing, you know, thousands of Prop HHH units coming online and driving strategic alignments and also collaborative, you know, changes within our partners, we can actually reduce the time that it takes to move someone from shelter to housing. Second, LASA will ensure that decision makers can create the policies to support this new vision by consistently collecting, consolidating, analyzing, and also sharing regional data that could help track our system's progress towards, you know, shared regional metric goals. And third, here we are taking action in our contract and grant management processes. So that actually, you know, provides our providers with the resources to maximize their impact on addressing homelessness across the county on a daily basis. And fourth, we will lead public education by telling the story of our progress, you know, reducing unsheltered homelessness and driving state and also federal advocacy with our partners that really do help create the policies that help us achieve our goals of reducing unsheltered homelessness. Now, while we have a new focus and vision, we are not changing our primary goal of placing our clients into permanent housing. Our work will remain grounded in proven best practices, of course, that are trauma informed and also housing first. So while LASA is, you know, acting to help our unsheltered neighbors find a permanent home faster, we cannot end homelessness alone. Our partners, you know, at all levels of government, you know, local, county, state, federal, we must, you know, act, you know, together to rebuild our broken social safety net and build more permanent housing. One of the biggest issues in LA County still is the lack of, you know, approximately 500,000 units of affordable housing. You know, the lack of affordable housing both pushes more people into homelessness and denies LASA and its partners to place our unhoused neighbors home. This is here is just a quick overview of, you know, of our funding. So LASA coordinates and manages over $800 million annually in federal, state, county, and city funds for programs that, you know, provide shelter, housing, and services to people experiencing homelessness. As you can see here in this slide, a large bulk of these funds, you know, they're allocated to our service providers. And with that being said, I'll pass it on to our Associate Director, Kim Barnett.
Thank you, Pablo. Just a little bit about myself before I start. I'm actually from the Southeast cities and I still live in the Southeast cities. So I have a lot of investment. I started doing homeless outreach, actually boots on the ground, locally in one of our Southeast cities about 15 years ago, and have watched the system develop into what it is now. When I was doing outreach, we had very little access to many of these services that are now available to us. Access centers, shelters, interim housing, and different of the other strategies that are now available to our outreach teams. Unfortunately, there's still a lack of accessible shelter beds in SPA 7, which is mainly the Southeast city, so we still have that challenge. But as we have developed the homeless delivery system, and I've been lucky enough to be part of the development of it and be able to inform it, especially the impacts that it has in the Southeast community. So something that I'm very proud of being able to inform it, because I'm in it, I live in it, and I worked in it. So it's very important to have that type of feedback when we're developing these systems. As we developed the homeless delivery system, we wanted to have a way. So if you can imagine, homeless services before was like pre-having any kind of roads on the streets. Imagine no roads, no way to get from A to B. As we delivered the homeless delivery system, we created pathways to those to enter the homeless delivery systems through access centers, through increasing funding for problem solving. This means family reunification, helping people with prevention, interim housing, transitional housing, and then the maintenance and development of the coordinated entry system, which actually gets people from A to B, from street to housing, and with various types of freeways, we would say, or different types of GPS to actually get to permanent housing. So that's the coordinated entry system, explained in a way that somebody could really understand it. In that, next slide, please. We were able to work with, there are 8 service planning areas in the county. So we were able to work with and develop a plan to make sure that we were leveraging the appropriate partners in each SPA. So as the homeless delivery system was developed, we have a lead agency in each SPA for each demographic, for our adults, single adults, our families, and our youth. Here in SPA 7, our lead agency is PATH, our family system is the Whole Child, and our TAY system lead is Jóvenes. One thing about our system in SPA 7 with PATH then ended up dividing the SPA into quadrants and partnered with natural partners who were already serving our homeless neighbors in each region. So in the city of Bell Gardens, our lead agency, along with PATH, that has a footprint, along with LASA, is Helpline Youth Counseling. So they're also partners with us in providing services and housing navigation in SPA 7 for what we call LCA 1, which Bell Gardens is part of. Next slide. So I kind of mentioned this already. We contract with over 92 providers who work with clients through highly skilled shelter staff, case managers, housing navigation, or housing navigators, outreach workers, and a lot more. We also work with specialty providers who assist domestic violence survivors and veterans while collaborating with DMH and DHS for those who are chronic and have debilitating disabilities. So in the development of the homeless delivery system, and one of the strategies that Measure H helped us develop was a very close partnership with DHS and DMH and LASA. And we meet, leadership and our teams meet about 2 to 3 times a week to ensure that the people that we are serving are getting the appropriate services through the appropriate agency. As it mentions, we strive and encourage our providers to hire people with lived experience, also people who are Black in roles throughout the system and especially in leadership. We believe that this is critical to ensuring that programs and services effectively meet the need of those they are intended to serve. So some of the things that we do when we're building out our teams is through experience, and it's been my experience that when we have people who are working on our staff who have experiencing homelessness, they have a very different approach and a connection and the ability to build a relationship with our homeless neighbors to really get them to a path and a road to to ending their homelessness. Next slide. As I was just mentioning relationship, we have 3 different teams. We call our generalist teams. Those teams are your teams that are LASA homeless engagement teams, or we call them our outreach teams. We also have generalists integrated into our multidisciplinary teams that are funded through E6, which is our teams with Department of Health Services, who also have a medical component and a peer substance abuse component. And we have specialty outreach teams through our DMH partnership with our home teams that have a clinician and a peer worker as well. Next slide. Housing solutions. Here are a few outcomes from 2020. And I'm a little remiss to share these because we do have some new outcomes coming and being developed here through our new point of time counts with some updated numbers of people placed into homelessness. But in 2020, our system saw that we had helped over 20,000 people experiencing homelessness move back into housing. We were able to use rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and other permanent housing, like transitional housing or shared housing, in order to end people's homelessness. The housing location program also helped us as LISA increase our housing inventory and quickly filled vacancies through unit availability website access only by CES participants, housing service providers. So we have a partnership with PATH through LISA, and LISA focuses on really looking at housing availability and units that are available in order to equip outreach and those housing navigators looking for vacant units for our homeless neighbors to quickly prioritize them and get them indoors and out of homelessness. Next slide. We also have and I think I already spoke a little bit about this, but a little bit more about it. We have our partnership with DHS and DMH leads. And these teams are very, very specific and have specialty teams and other services attached to them. For our Housing for Health multidisciplinary teams, they have 70 teams. They have 12,000 permanent supportive housing units with 90% of the clients staying housed after a year. They were able to fill over 2,000 beds of interim housing, and we're able to operate sobering centers. Our sobering centers are a place that our outreach teams are able to bring people who are really looking to find a place for respite as they're going through a transition of using substances and trying to get on track. And those are very helpful for us. We don't have many access to them, but those are very helpful as we continue to work with people and find what program or what resource is going to be helpful to them. DHS also operates ODR housing, and this is with people who have mental health and substance abuse issues, and also boarding care for people who are aging, and those were about 1,200. DHS also offers a hospice care, which is very important. In the years that I've been working in this field, I've seen an increase of people that are over 60 experiencing homelessness, and it's very tragic. Many suffering from different illnesses, and even some having to do hospice on the street, which is very heartbreaking. DMH also has boarding care and places for the gravely disabled. Next slide. Apologies. One of the successes that we have and that we see, and a vital part of the work that we are doing, is case management. And case management is one of those things is just vital to the work that we're doing. It provides continuum of care once we get someone into interim housing. Case management allows us to follow the person from street to home, making it a lot easier for people experiencing homelessness, cross those very difficult barriers that can present themselves while experiencing homelessness or even while in shelter. The process is, it helps our system and our providers to make sure that folks are moving along the already impacted shelter system that we have. But of course, we're all competing for the same resource, the same housing available unit. So we need to make sure that we're continuing to maintain our relationships and our forward progress with our clients through the process of case management. Next slide. My favorite thing here. And I recently looked at some of the numbers in the Southeast cities just as I was preparing for another presentation. And I realized that Southeast cities is not really using our LA HOP system, which is very vital for us to be able to gather data. It doesn't just, let me explain a little bit. So when Measure H passed, we decided that we needed a way to centralize requests and make sure that there were ways that our stakeholders, our community, our elected had a platform, a portal to enter these requests into a system that would then be distributed or strategically assigned to the people who are naturally doing outreach in specific regions. So as I mentioned in SPA 7, it's broken down into a quadrant. You all are part of LCA 1, which is with six other cities. And we have PATH, LASA teams, and HYC and our home teams all responding accordingly. So if we have a request that comes in from Bell Gardens that says, hey, there's somebody that is has been on this in front of our library, they're declining in health, they look like they need medical attention, and they may be suffering from mental health. The outreach coordinator is going to get that request from LA HOP and is going to see that it needs medical attention, it needs mental health attention, and perhaps it needs actual first responders. So what's going to happen is it's going to get assigned to the lead agency. The lead agency is then going to assign it to the appropriate team. For example, they wouldn't necessarily assign it to a LASA team because we're a generalist team with no medical component. They would then assign it to a MDT, a multidisciplinary team that has a nurse that accompanies them to do outreach. And so then we would be able to then respond within a certain amount of time. We're actually pretty good in SPA 7 in our response time. We do our best to get there within 48 hours. Although they say we have 72 hours, but I know that we're doing very well with this. And then several of us have access to the back end. And for example, if I get a call from city manager or from the chief, let's say, and they said that they entered a request, but they never saw any outreach, I'm able to look in the back end and see who it was assigned to and try to get a little bit more follow-up to see what was going on without, of course, we are held to HIPAA standards. So I can't, divulge too much information, but I can confirm that outreach is occurring and the outreach will continue. So those are some of the things that we can do. This portal also allows us to see how many requests are coming. Are we seeing a trend? Are we seeing a location that's increased requests? And do we need to strategize a different way and get a collaborative going or figure something out? So those are some of the things that LA HOPS helps us do. It is www.la-hop.org. I know that a lot of our cities, I'm not sure if Bell Garden has it on their portal, on their website, but it would be very helpful and maybe some kind of education to the community so that we could see really, where are we seeing these increase of requests. I did see a hand go up. Can we do this last slide and then take questions after? that okay? Awesome. Next slide. Of course, we will continue to treat every person experiencing homelessness with dignity and deserving of our greatest efforts to assist them. And we look to all of you, the community, stakeholders, council members, city managers, chiefs, everyone, to continue to help supporting us, informing us through LA Hop what the need is, and of course, always welcoming back. We're happy to give any updates as they come in. And that is it for us, and we are here for questions.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Hello. Hi, Kimberly. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate it. I was curious to know if by any chance the data for the 2021 count was already available, or if this data for this year was already available. I did a bit of searching on the LASA website, but I can't seem to find it.
I could take this question, Kim. Is that okay? Okay. So we released the 2022 homeless count data last week on Thursday to the public. You could find it on lasa.org under our news tab. So you could find there is a PowerPoint presentation. You can find the data that kind of breaks it down by SPA. But this, this year we did estimate that a little bit over 69,000 people are experiencing homelessness on any given night in LA County. So the last time we did a count was 2020. We didn't conduct one last year because of COVID. So from 2020 to 2022, there was a 4.1% increase. Just as a reminder, it is a point in time count, and that number doesn't necessarily mean that that's the number today. As I'm speaking. So for SPA 7, from 2020 to 2022, there was, a very low increase, 4% increase, I believe. So it wasn't significant. And I believe from 2020's numbers, it was a little bit above, 4,500, around that range. And it went up by almost 200. So about a 4% increase. We do have a PowerPoint presentation, dedicated towards the homeless count. I could coordinate, with the city manager from Bell Gardens. So I'm more than happy to present that during the next council meeting if you guys, want us to. Thank you.
Thank you. Go for it.
Sorry, I was looking at your data online. So you only have it broken down by the areas, correct? You don't have it city by city?
We don't, it's, online on our website, it's broken down, by SPAs, so.
We do. I'm sorry. We do have it broken down. Let me go ahead and share the link on the general chat, and you'll see it. It says count by city community. I think the link that I'm going to send you will send you directly to it. And it is there. Oh, I don't have the ability. Okay, do host and panelists. I can do that. It's a little tricky. You'll have to work with it. You need to enter your city. And it'll break it down by census tract as well. Any other questions? And I welcome any of the council members, mayors. You want to come out with us and do outreach? I'm happy to bring you out.
Thank you, Kimberly. This is Councilwoman Flores. I just want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing in the Southeast cities. I know that it's very heart-wrenching at times, but you continue to, move forward and go through the trenches with our gente, right? So thank you so much. And I'm definitely going to take up your offer of walking the streets and doing some outreach here, at least in our city of Bell Gardens. And, what happens in one city definitely affects the rest of the Acela city. So thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, Pablo, for this presentation.
Thank you for having us.
Hi there. I have a couple of more questions. Sorry about that. I was trying to gather my thoughts and at the same time look at the data. As I was looking at the LASA dashboard, I saw that it is broken down into census tracts, but it didn't give me the total amount, for example, throughout the city of Bell Gardens. So I had to just do some quick math, and I think in total, in terms of how many unhoused residents we have, I think it's about 194 to the date right now. And I just went by adding up all the little precincts that are on the dashboard.
So I think if you click on the link that she just sent us, it'll take you directly to the portal where you can see the count. So for Bell Gardens, it's 133.
133. Oh, okay. Because I clicked on the link and then it sent me to the select the year and then say search for community, and then I just put Bell Gardens there. But it, for some reason, it just lets me like go through each tract instead.
That was like 2019. There was a decrease in 2020, and there's a slight increase in 2022. If you look at the map, and like Pablo said, he's probably better to come back with an actual data set specific to Bell Gardens. But just from the website, if you could see, these areas are areas that had been previously impacted. And I believe there's something else that I need to look at that I'm happy to come back that I just noticed right now.
Gotcha.
So,
okay. Yeah, I in the census tracts that I was checking and whatnot, I noticed that most of the folks that appear to be unhoused within the city seem to be concentrated along if not the riverbed, the freeway, and if not that alongside in the south side by the train tracks. I'm curious to know, I know when we talk about outreach, I know you mentioned quite a few providers, and on the PowerPoint presentation, you had mentioned PATH, the Whole Child, PATH, which focuses on adults, the Whole Child, which focuses on families, and then Hoveness Incorporated, which focuses on the youth. You also mentioned Helpline Youth Counseling. Where are they stationed? Helpline or HYC, I think that's what you call them.
let me check again. I believe they have a Southeast City office. If I'm not mistaken, it's Maywood or Commerce. I'm not 100% sure. My LCA1 team is out of East LA. And we are collaboratively in the Southeast cities at least 2 to 3 times a week.
And is there a sort of, oh, by the way, I just figured out, it does say 133 as a little corner thing. Thank you for that. I'm curious to know, when these outreach workers, any of these organizations, when it comes to like funding, is this something that directly comes from LASA and is provided to them, or is this something where through the Measure H fund? How does that work?
So our MDT teams were funded through DHS through Measure H, and our CES outreach is funds PATH to do the coordination, and LA Hop and having a coordinator to make sure that we're doing that. So, and that was funded through Measure H.
Gotcha.
And then Measure H also funds the LASA outreach teams that I oversee.
Okay, then. Another thing that I wasn't too familiar with, but I'm glad to know that exists, is the LA Hop. That it seems like it's sort of, is there an app for that already? Or in terms of accessibility,
it's still web-based. I do have it. It looks like an app on my phone because I kind of just ping it and I could just click it and use it, but it is web-based still.
Okay. And I haven't checked the interface. I'm not familiar with it, but I would hope that it would be user-friendly. And it's pretty straightforward to go ahead and make a request. When a request comes in, I know you mentioned that there was a turnaround of between 48 to 72 hours, and actually within our spa, there's a pretty good turnaround of about 48 hours. When a request comes in, when a request comes in between those 48 hours, what if the individuals have already moved to a different side of the city, or if they're in a different place at that point, or at that point in time, what sort of strategies are used to tackle that?
it is challenging. Unfortunately, we're not like, our awesome first responder partners that can like dispatch right away. Unfortunately, we're too little to have that kind of access to go right away. But what we do encourage is you do receive an email. You do receive an email with the ticket number. So if you notice that that person like moved the next day and you haven't received an email confirmation that they did receive services, you can reply to that email with the ticket number that you're given and say, hey, I made this request. This is the request number. And I actually noticed that they're now on Florence and Gage. Some other shit.
So the opportunity to go back and update it is available through the.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Through email, not through, you could go back to the portal and reference your ticket number on the request, and that would click to the people who are managing in the back end.
When the request comes in, there's a variety of different service providers that can attend. It could be y'all, it could be PAT, it could be the HYC. Is it first come, first serve, or is it just whoever's available, or what's sort of the strategy, or who gets first dibs in trying to attack, trying to help out and assist?
Yeah, as I mentioned, our LASA outreach teams don't have a medical component. So if the request says, a person is naked in front of the library and is suffering from severe mental health, they're not going to dispatch me because I'm not going to have the appropriate support that I need. They will be dispatching to the DMH team that has the clinician and support that they need in order to address it. If it's something with a medical condition, they might send us so that we can easily connect them to our medical teams, or take them to a mobile clinic that's also available to us. But if it says severe, severe wounds, looks like they haven't eaten, things to that nature, it might be that we're assigned two teams, one to address the general most immediate needs like food and water, and then send the supplementary with our MDT teams to address the medical need.
Okay. You mentioned something that quite a bit, or I mean, a couple of times we've seen, and I myself have experience here within the city as I'm driving around. There's folks who clearly seem like they might have, they might not all be there. There's definitely some trauma, and they seem that they're unhoused. In most cases, at least the direction that we've given in the past, luckily our city has been blessed in terms of having the Community Family Service Center, and we have folks that are specialized in assisting or providing resources to homeless individuals. And alongside them, there's sometimes either recreation folks that go get sent out, or our police department. I know cities within SELA or Southeast LA, they have contracted with DMH, and have DMH goes out with our officers to assist these folks. The thing that is a bit difficult is that DMH isn't always accessible for the fact that they're not always on duty per se, right? They have to bounce around from different cities and try to assist these folks. So in terms of perhaps more funding when it comes to that, has there been cities that have kind of come forward and said, hey, most of the cases that are coming in, it's obviously folks that are unhoused and that are living in cars and RVs and whatnot, but there's also quite a few folks that are also, have trauma, and, there's definitely some mental health component, and we just don't want to send our own officers to be vulnerable in those cases, but at the same time send clinicians and mental health providers to that case. However, since there's perhaps a lack of funding when it comes to addressing that, has there been discussions about potentially assisting cities and providing them directly with relief in that case so we could have more mental health clinicians on site?
So I do know that the county has revisited the Measure H funding and the resources and the allocations. If I live in an independent city in the Southeast, and if somebody in my city were to ask me, I would make sure that they are very well connected to their COG, and to really leverage the relationship of the COG to ensure that those needs are being discussed at that level. Additionally, you guys actually have a pretty awesome Southeast City Mental Evaluation Team, which includes the Southeast City, Southgate, Belleville Gardens. And I've actually worked with Chief Fairfield in the past. I don't know if he remembers me. At that time, Sergeant Sanisi, through the host regional model. So the Board of Supervisors did allocate some funding for us to do specific outreach within the Southeast cities through a host model, which is a partnership with our law enforcement partners. Unfortunately, the funding of that really taps out pretty quickly. So, our law enforcement partners are already pretty tapped out. But I will say that our Bell Gardens partnership has been one of my favorite ones. Really helpful. They're well trained. Sometimes they know more that our homeless neighbors than we do, because they know where they're at all the time. They come in contact with them. So we're working on that again, trying to get back to getting some more outreach days on the calendar with our PD partners in Bell Gardens, and hoping to get back out to that.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad to hear that our home police department has been very responsive, and the collaboration efforts are definitely there. And I'm glad to hear that. Now, a lot of these questions have been focused on when it comes to the approach to speaking to these folks and potentially identifying what's the scenario and what case they're going through at that moment. Once we've identified that, let's just say the person's still not interested in receiving care, and they clearly want to stay on the streets. What sort of options are available at that point?
So you're asking the wrong person, because I'm gonna always tell you they didn't want it that day, and it is my job to keep trying. That's always gonna be my answer, and it's taken me, I've done the whole process from street to home, and I've been able to house people in 30 days and some people in 5 years. I mean, we just have to keep trying.
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely the approach that I think that that's the approach that we need to take. It's about building that relationship, building that trust, that eventually, would you rather be outside in 105-degree weather like we just had in a heat wave last week, or would you rather be in a room that has air conditioner, right? I think that's definitely the approach that needs to be taken. But I mean, I think that there's also perhaps something there's a caveat that's missing, right? Or there's a flaw within that, because at the end of the day, I think of it as, well, if they clearly know that this person isn't all there, right? I know that there's been a lot of conversation about court care, and that's something that in the state, there's already been discussions. There's actually been, I think it's in the governor to sign it at this point. But in terms of that, when that comes down, are we prepared for that? Are we ready for that?
Absolutely. I mean, these are partnerships with DMH and, even our law enforcement partners that have to do 5150s for the same person over and over again. But taking somebody's rights away is going to take all of those supporting documentation to ensure that person really can't take care of themselves. I will say I've had success treating people on the street with their severe mental health issues, and have been able to get them placed. Again, with the appropriate resources, we can end homelessness, right? But when I have no beds, when I have no clinicians, it's kind of hard. So we do the best that we can, and we just try to make sure that we're partnering with our E6 partnerships through DHS and DMH. Like I said, I meet with the leads of DHS and DMH 3 times a week at 4 o'clock to make sure that we're addressing anything that's serious that we need to come together and make sure that we're addressing it in a timely manner. Of course, there's not enough of us. But again, that's not something that stops us. We just have to keep trying, and hopefully the right resource will come online to help these folks.
Great. All right, final question. I feel like I've asked a lot of questions, but this conversation is definitely something that's intriguing to me, and I definitely want to do as much as I can to really push this forward, because I really feel that it's not just about mental health and addiction and treating that, but also housing, right? Which brings me to my last question. Obviously, we know that there's a lack of housing throughout the state. Here in our city, we've taken the approach to really care for the family unit and and we just passed rent control in the last meeting, and we're going to continually push that to keep families from becoming homeless in the first place, right? You know, but in that case where a family does get evicted or a family is homeless, you know, we go ahead and we put that request in through the HOP website. There's a turnaround, 48 hours go by, 2 days go by. Is there a place, is there a space available for them? Where is that space? Is it first come, first serve? Do any requirements need to be met for them to be accepted into the space? Yeah, I'm curious to that. A couple weeks ago, we took a tour of the Salvation Army here in the city of Bell, but I'm curious to know what options are available at that moment. And that's my final question. Thank you.
So you gave me a double whammy because you said one that's about to be evicted and someone that's actually home. So whoever advocated with SD1 to get us those beds at the Bell Shelter, thank you. Those have been just an absolute blessing because without those, it would be way harder. That facility is super packed. So outreach teams are just very grateful that they have that option, especially for the Southeast cities that are benefiting from that. So things like that are very important to bring up, continue to work with now our supervisor for this area, Supervisor Han, continue to bring that up. We are investing and the county is investing into more rapid rehousing money and rental prevention. And those are some things that you can also work with the county to ensure that you all, as through your CDBG funding or anything like that, you're able to apply for some of those fundings to make sure that those monies are available to you for your city residents who are not homeless, but at risk of becoming homeless.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I wanted to thank you for everything you do. I was not aware that Housing for Health was part of the services that you provide. In my experience in working in healthcare, I have used that resource for some of my patients. So surprisingly, I've worked in facilities in Torrance, Whittier, and Downey. And oftentimes patients within the healthcare system, when they're not housed, they get moved around from nursing home to nursing home, even though they're completely functional, but they don't have the resources to live someplace permanently. And Housing for Health helped me countless of times to find permanent housing for my patients because it's not healthy for a functional person to live in a nursing home. So your IDT was able to help me find housing. I think there's a campus by MLK Hospital, and the team that you have was amazing in doing the assessment, provided transportation, and help us with that transition and making sure that everything was safe and that my patient was felt secure. Because I think oftentimes that's what's missing with a lot of our homeless people. They feel that they have that learned helplessness where they think, well, you know, I tried everything and now there's no help for me. And even when you offer it, it feels a little bit too late. Thank you so much for what you do all over our cities and in the city of Bell Gardens. Thank you for this presentation and for all of your education. Thank you. Any more questions from somebody other than Mayor Pro Tem? I'm just kidding. Okay, thank you so much. We'll move on to the next presentation. Thank you. Let's see. Next presentation will be given by Councilmember Barcena.
Hello, everyone. This is Councilmember Barcena. Can you hear me? I'm going to assume that you can hear me. Okay. So right now we have a certificate of recognition. And before I mention the members of our community that are going to be receiving this, I want to say thank you. Muchas gracias, señoras. Ya las veo que están ahí. Gracias por su paciencia. Yo sé que la presentación estuvo un poco larga, pero gracias por esperarnos. I just want to let everyone know that these ladies that are here today, they usually work out during this hour. So they actually sat through the presentation and waited patiently. So you guys better make it worth it. And I know that you will, because I know that we all love them and we really appreciate them. So quiero decir un poco de este grupo. Este grupo tiene ya más de 18 años sirviendo de voluntarios en la comunidad, haciendo ejercicio en el parque de veteranos. Son tres instructoras que dan su tiempo a la comunidad con mucho amor. Como les dije, ya van más de 18 años, entonces tenemos un reconocimiento hoy para ellas. Aquí está, es de parte de la alcaldesa de la ciudad que me dio la oportunidad de hablar y darles este reconocimiento. Y es algo así lo que dice, en reconocimiento y apreciación por su servicio a la comunidad, siendo líderes voluntarias del grupo de ejercicio de adultos Vida Sana desde el año 2004. Este reconocimiento es para Araceli Martínez, Marta Beltrán, María del Rosario García Solórzano. Estas tres son las instructoras de este grupo, pero también estamos reconociendo a todo el grupo en sí mismo, porque este grupo es un grupo de mujeres muy creativas, muy activas, que ponen el ejemplo de cómo vivir sanamente en nuestra comunidad. Entonces, nosotros las apreciamos mucho, todo el consejo. Quiero decir que el vicealcalde Jorge ya había pedido que las reconocieran, pero debido a la pandemia no se pudo hacer eso, entonces gracias también a él. Y solo quiero decir que las camisetas que tienen ahorita están muy bonitas. Ellas diseñaron este logotipo y se me hizo algo excepcional. Tienen tres colores, rosa, amarillo y verde, que significan amor, sabiduría y salud. Y también quiero decir que otra cosa muy bonita que he notado de ellas es que ellas están ahí para apoyar a la comunidad en tiempos difíciles. Cuando mi papá se nos fue, se murió este año, más temprano este año, ellas le extendieron la mano a mi mamá y a mi familia y han estado apoyándonos desde entonces. Pero no solo eso es lo que he observado, también con las tragedias que hemos tenido aquí en el Consejo últimamente, ellas atendieron a las misas que se dieron para estos individuos y mostraron ellos su apoyo a la comunidad que va más allá del grupo en el grupo en el que están. Así que muchas gracias, las queremos mucho y ahora voy a dejar que el resto de los concejales y la alcaldesa den unas palabras.
Mayor Mia.
Yes.
Hola, buenas tardes. Gracias a todas por esperarnos. Están, ya sé que moviendo y tienen que ir a hacer un montón de cosas. O gracias por esperar muy pacientemente. Es un placer para nosotros reconocerlas y reconocerlos a todos en esta tarde. Su grupo es maravilloso. Yo he ido unas cuantas veces que las he visto en el parque y son muchísimas de ustedes y me impresiona la verdad que se mantienen activas, se mantienen saludables y siempre para adelante y creo que es un gran ejemplo para nuestra comunidad. Y pues es un ejemplo para mí que ustedes tienen miles de ocupaciones y aún así hacen tiempo para su salud y su bienestar. Y creo que eso es algo que tenemos que continuar promoviendo en nuestra comunidad. Les quedó padrísimo ese logotipo y su corazón pues está abierto para todos nosotros. Eso es lo que yo veo. Y sí, muchas gracias a todos los de ustedes que asistieron a las misas y a los velorios y a todos de nuestros familiares. Se les aprecia desde el fondo de nuestro corazón y las queremos mucho y qué bueno que están recibiendo ese reconocimiento, pero esto es poco a lo que todas ustedes se merecen. Continúen invitándonos a sus eventos, a sus potlucks, sus kermeses, porque queremos convivir y queremos estar ahí con ustedes, pero sigan adelante y una vez más los apreciamos y las queremos mucho.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
No.
Hola, buenas noches, muchachas. Es Lisette. Estoy sin palabras, honestamente. Ustedes saben que pasé por unos momentos muy difíciles y los sigo pasando. Y ustedes son vecinas buenas, son vecinas de verdad. Sus palabras de ustedes tienen mucho valor. Su presencia es apreciada y querida y su corazón de mamás son de oro. Yo tengo que aprender de ustedes porque aparte de todas esas cualidades, todavía hacen ejercicio y yo no hago ejercicio. Pero les quiero decir en verdad que ustedes, como ya vieron lo que pasó, fueron a la misa de mi primo y también me acompañaron en el cementerio. Y para mí eso es mucho y para siempre me voy a acordar porque dicen como todos van a todas las fiestas de uno, ¿verdad? Pero cuando alguien se muere, esa es la última fiesta de alguien y ustedes estuvieron ahí para esto y para mí fue muy grande y no tengo palabras para describir mi apreciación de mi familia Y thank you so much. And that's it. No quería hablar, pero ni modo. Thank you. Muchas gracias, muchachos.
Muy buenas noches. Ay, disculpa por andar preguntando demasiado en la última presentación, ¿verdad? Estamos hablando sobre indigentes en la comunidad y esa situación. Nomás les quiero decir, Marta, María y Araceli, muchas gracias por todo lo que hacen por nuestra comunidad. Yo he tenido la oportunidad de estar allí, no necesariamente practicando o haciendo ejercicio con ustedes, pero sí de lejitos ahí nomás me estoy comiendo. La última vez estaba comiendo un plato de tacos y me pregunté, dije, no, aquí era nomás, yo estoy comiendo aquí y ustedes están haciendo ejercicio. No, así no. Pero de nuevo, les agradezco mucho por todo lo que hacen por nuestra comunidad, por los residentes de Bell Gardens, y de nuevo, como dijo el concejal Barcena, lo que se representa esa playera, ¿verdad? Las bendiciones de amor, sabiduría y salud. Que Dios la siga bendiciendo a ustedes y que sigan educando y sigan apoyando a nuestra comunidad. Muchas gracias, se lo agradezco mucho.
Y solo para agregar, digo, bueno, el concejal o el vicealcalde está flaquito, entonces está bien que está comiendo tacos en el parque, ¿verdad? Pero felicidades a ustedes, siempre bien movidas, bien energéticas. Recuerdo que varias veces me han invitado a ir, pero un día de estos creo que sí voy a llegarles a acompañar y a ver si me ayudan a bajar un poquito de peso. Gracias por esperar y por ser tan pacientes y por todo lo que han hecho por la comunidad y por darnos un buen ejemplo a todos nosotros. Y ojalá un día lleguemos a ser como ustedes. Muchísimas gracias por todo. Gracias. Next presentation. Oh, y el concejal Bárcena se va a asegurar de que ustedes reciban su certificado. ¿Sí? Ya, él lo tiene. Si no les llega es porque él se lo dejó. Okay. Next presentation will be given by Councilwoman Cortez.
Thank you, Mayor. Y en lo que tenemos también a la vida sana, si me hacen el favor de recibir esta proclamación, la voy a leer en inglés y creo que hay traducción. Es una presentación honrando el mes de los hispanos y las contribuciones que han hecho a este país, y creo que ustedes hacen muchas contribuciones. So today the City of Bell Gardens would like to issue this proclamation in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas each year the United States observes National Hispanic Heritage Month by celebrating the culture, heritage, and countless contributions of those ancestors who were indigenous to North America, as well as those who came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central American, and South America. And whereas that began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under the President Johnson, and was expanded by President Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period starting on September 15 and ending on October 15. The people of Hispanic descent are the heirs and missionaries, captains, soldiers, and farmers who were motivated by young spirit of adventure and desire to settle freely in the free land. This heritage is ours, and Hispanic and Latino Americans have served our country in the past and continue to serve in significant and enduring ways. And although too numerous to recognize individually by name, Latinos serve as civil rights leaders, community organizers, politicians, soldiers, educators, journalists, first responders, pioneers in the arts, science, healthcare professionals, athletes, inventors, entertainers, and so much more. Several of our states and many of our cities bear Hispanic names and continue Hispanic traditions that enrich our national life. And Hispanics continue their rich history of significant and diverse contributions to the cultural, educational, economic, and political vitality of Bell Gardens, California, Los Angeles County, and the entire United States of America. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that Maria Pulido, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, with the City Council, do hereby proclaim September 15 through October 15 as Hispanic Heritage Month, and encourage all residents of Bell Gardens to celebrate and honor the rich diversity of the Latino community and celebrate the many ways they contribute to our nation and society. Thank you.
Thank you. Final presentation will be given by Councilwoman Flores.
Yes. So today we have a very special recognition to someone every single resident in the city of Bell Gardens knows. We have a recognition, the City of Bell Gardens Certificate of Recognition presented to El Chilito Catering in recognition and appreciation of your service to the community by preparing and serving food for over 10 years in the city, at city special events and our summer concerts and more series and more movie series. I just want to say something really quick that I think that everybody should know. For the 50th anniversary event of the city, our staff looked for sponsors to provide food for this event and for the volunteers and staff and entertainers. The event was 3 days long and they had to serve food backstage for staff, entertainers, and everybody who was a part of it for 3 full days for free. And Maria Orozco from El Chilito Catering did that for us. So Maria, por favor, venga para enfrente, and if everybody, we can celebrate this moment.
Any comments before we take a couple pictures?
Yes. Hola, señora Orozco. Es un placer tenerla aquí. Bueno, yo conocí a sus muchachos porque sus hijos fueron a la escuela conmigo. Samuel fue mi compañero de clase y ya después me enteré que usted era su mamá. Y lo preferido para mí es su agua de fresa, pero todo le queda tan delicioso y muchísimas gracias por el servicio que le da a nuestra ciudad, a nuestra comunidad. Tan activa, sus hijos también han trabajado para nuestra ciudad y creo que pues ustedes son una familia son un ejemplo a seguir. Hemos conocido un poquito de sus luchas, de su trabajo, pero aún así usted también sigue adelante y por eso el día de hoy es un placer honrarla aquí en nuestra comunidad y reconocer su trabajo, pero al igual que le dije a las de Vida Sana, eso es poco a lo que ustedes se merecen. Pero gracias por estar con nosotros esta noche y también esperarnos muy pacientemente. Y ahí les dice a su familia que disculpen, que por lo menos la deberíamos de llevar a cenar, ¿no? Ya. Pero muchísimas gracias y muchísimas felicidades.
Muchas gracias a ustedes.
Madam Mayor, if I may. Señora, solo quiero decir que me da mucho gusto que usted es parte de nuestra comunidad en estos eventos tan especiales. Me encanta ir a los eventos y verla a usted. Es tan amable con nuestra comunidad, es tan amable con el público, los empleados, todos. Entonces, me da mucho gusto poder reconocerla ahora como una persona muy valiosa en nuestra comunidad y espero que siga aquí por muchos años, décadas y hasta donde alcancemos, ¿verdad? Muchas gracias.
Ya sabe lo que le voy a decir. Muchas gracias. No, usted me vio crecer, ¿verdad? Por el tiempo y pues siempre ha estado cerca de un modo o del otro. Si estamos en el evento o estamos con mi familia, le agradezco por todo lo que ha hecho y lo que sigue haciendo por nuestra comunidad. Lo que siempre yo he visto que es muy valioso y yo siempre estoy al lado de mis trabajadores y les agradezco a todos los que ponen las mesas, los que ponen los canopies, los que ponen las luces, todos los trabajadores. Y al último del día, a veces somos los últimos y estamos arreglando las cosas para llevarnos para atrás, pero de nuevo usted siempre, hey, cualquier cosa que los trabajadores que ocupen, si tienen hambre, aquí tenemos la comida. Y le agradezco mucho que están cuidando a nuestros trabajadores y de corazón se lo agradezco. So, de nuevo, muchas gracias por todo lo que hace y pues aquí estamos, ya sabe. Gracias.
Yo le puedo decir, muchísimas gracias por esperar, por ser una mujer tan luchona y por estar aquí lidiando tanto tiempo de nosotros aquí hablando. Pero muchísimas gracias y por ser parte de la comunidad de Bell Gardens y por apoyarnos siempre. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias.
¿Gustaría decir algún comentario? ¿No?
Muchas gracias. Pues en principal, muchas gracias a ustedes por el concilio. Es un concilio que ayuda mucho a la comunidad y especialmente a mí. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Gracias a todos los trabajadores también del parque, Oscar, Ana, que siempre me están apoyando, Daisy, Angie, los llevo en mi corazón. Gracias.
muted. We will now begin the meeting with the first item on the agenda. At this time, I will open the public hearing at 7:29. City Manager, will you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor Polito. This item is for the approval of a proposed electronic billboard lease and relocation agreement. We're asking that the council conduct the public hearing, receive the testimony, adopt the attached resolution, and approve the billboard lease. Essentially, when you see billboard lease and relocation agreement, what that means is that outdoor media will remove 2 existing billboards in exchange for the ability to lease land from the city to place an electronic billboard that would generate revenue for the city. And with that, I will turn it over to Gus Romar, our Community Development Director, for a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. If IT can go ahead and put up the presentation. Okay, if we can go on to the next slide. So, Mayor and City Council, the city adopted a billboard overlay district a few years back. This was about 2015 or so. And in 2017, they issued an RFP to solicit bids from billboard companies. The city along the 710 freeway has an overlay district that allows for electronic billboards with the idea of taking down 2 billboards and putting up 1 new one. So if you recall back in 2020, the city approved a billboard for Outfront Media over on Clara Street. That billboard has since been constructed and is up and running. The agreement that we have with Outfront Media also allows for the city to be able to put in public advertising on there. And Outfront Media has been wonderful about putting up advertising whenever the city needed it for public events and so forth. So at this point, the city is negotiating the second billboard with Outfront Media, also along the 710 freeway, but this time along a parcel that's located next to Julia Asmus Park and Shoal Street. City staff is recommending a long-term ground lease for this property. And the terms and conditions of this billboard lease are very similar to the ones for Clara Street. Again, we're looking to remove 2 legal non-conforming billboards. In this case, the ones located along the railroad and the 710 freeway. I'll show you a picture of those in just a bit, in exchange for a construction of the new electronic billboard. Next slide, please. So in 2022, on February, Council adopted Ordinance 921 to amend the code and allow electronic billboards that are proposed within 150 feet of a residential zone to be reduced in terms of the distance. In July, the Planning Commission adopted the resolution, which found that the proposed lease of the city-owned property conformed with the general plan, and then recommended approval of this billboard lease and the new electronic billboard to the council. Next slide. This is the area of the city's property. It's zoned MPD, manufactured plan development, which allows an electronic billboard. It's also zoned overlay district for the billboard. The site is approximately 2,800 square feet in size, and is located within residential areas to the northeast and the 710 freeway along the west, Julia Asmus Park on the north, and the vacant former Burke Oil site to the south. Next slide. As you know, the site conditions right now are vacant. The existing site where the billboard is separate from the Burke Oil site. So just keep in mind, it's a separate lot altogether. Next slide. The relocation agreement will take down 2 static billboards, which you can see here. They're not very noticeable along the freeway. And so the loss of these billboards will be unnoticed in a sense, because you're going to have one larger, more prominent electronic billboard, but that's facing completely the street to the freeway. The new electronic billboards, they no longer have flood lighting that goes up to them, similar to what the static billboards had. So therefore, the light emission is not as great. Next slide. this is what you're going to be seeing as a proposed design. Again, similar to the Clara Street sign, Bell Gardens is on the sign identifying, and this billboard will have two faces on it. They'll be similar to a V shape so that people going south will notice it and people going north will notice it. Next slide, please. And this is the specific location again, showing that these two faces will be aimed towards the freeway. Next slide. Here's the northbound view. Next slide. And the southbound view. Next slide. When you're looking at the billboard from Shoal Street, this is what you're going to be seeing. Again, those two billboards, as you can see, are facing towards the freeway. Here, it looks like a cat's head because you're seeing the backside of the billboards, in other words. Next slide. This just shows the photometrics analysis of the billboard, identifying where that light emission will be mostly going towards. Next slide. So in looking at the design operation regulations, the billboard does meet all the requirements. And because of the amendment that took place back in February, it also meets the distance criteria. Next slide. The display of the words or statement of words of an obscene or indecent or immoral character is prohibited. And this is the same as the other billboard. This is within the city's design standards for billboards. The sign company is also required to provide 24/7 maintenance for any damage of the billboard, anything that's seen malfunctioning, whether they're lights or anything within the post itself. All billboards are subject to approval of federal or state permits, so they still have to go through Caltrans and get those permits. And they're subject to the agreement governing the compliance with design operations and other public benefits that you're going to be looking at tonight to approve. Next slide, please. So the proposed billboard provides three main public benefits. The revenue is one of them, a 10-year ground lease with 2 potential 5-year extensions. Guaranteed minimum rent, the years 1 through 5 is $140,000, and that goes up to $185,000 for years 16 to 20. The city, in addition to that, will also receive 40% of any annual revenue in excess of the guaranteed minimum, based on the proceeds from advertising that the billboard company gets. The city will also receive a one-time payment of $30,000 as reimbursement for the costs associated with preparing this agreement, whether they're legal costs and consultant costs. Next slide. So overall, the applicant's request is consistent with our general plan and meets the findings established under the Bell Gardens Municipal Code. And it also conforms with all applicable design standards. And next slide. So the recommendation, as our city manager has indicated, is that you open the public hearing, receive the public comments, and then adopt this resolution, finding that the government code section is in compliance, that the lease conforms to the Bell Gardens general plan, finding that the electronic billboard satisfies all the required findings under the Bell Gardens specific section for billboards 9.40065, and approve the lease and relocation agreement between the City of Bell Gardens and Outfront Media. That concludes my presentation. If there are any other comments, we also have our city planner, Mr. Stephen Jones, here to answer any questions.
Does any member of the city council have any questions? No?
Yes, I just have one question. It's the same question I feel that I've had, and myself, it might be redundant, but I just want specific clarification. Is it going to affect any of the, is there going to be any excessive light pollution to the new homes that are going to be built in that corner?
No, we've been working with Western Pacific Holdings on this. So they're aware of the billboard. We've gone through the design with them. We've identified where the homes are going to be located in comparison to the billboard. So they understand that no, there will not be any emissions towards the homes. In fact, the light emissions are going to be facing the freeway and going towards the easement that's within the west side of the site. So there's a 20-foot easement along the west side. And on top of that, there's parking also along that side.
And
so
then
the light.
It's going to help the parking, actually.
Yes, it probably will.
Okay, that's good. I mean, I'm glad that you guys are working the analytics of it. Now, one other question is, I remember we had conversations and I asked for it to look a little more natural instead of so frail free, more like a tree stump or like have, I mean, palms probably would not be ideal, but sort of a pine. Like I said, I know that these exist and they're in other more affluent cities, but since we are just coming into it and building it now, what's the discussion surrounding the appeal of it?
We did have that talk with the consultant, Mr. Scott Sheldon, who, by the way, is also here with us tonight, as well as Outfront Media. It was cost prohibitive to try to do something on the billboard itself. That's something that we typically see in telecommunication facilities, but not so much in billboards. So the decision was to make the sign itself, or I should say the sign post, more innocuous by painting it black. Therefore, it kind of fits into the background. But let me go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Scott Sheldon. Scott, are you there? I'm not sure if Scott was let in on the panel. Okay, doesn't seem like he's here then. Mr. Stephen Jones, do you know if Scott will be joining us?
He is on, I guess he's just on the attendees portion. I don't know if.
Okay, so
Yes, he just rose his hand. Can you hear me now?
Director.
There he is.
We can hear you now. Yes,
Okay,
go ahead, Scott.
thank you very much. Mayor, City Council members, Mr. O'Kelly and Gus, my name is Scott Sheldon with Terra Realty Advisors. And as Gus mentioned, we are the consultant for the city of Bell Gardens on both the Clara Street sign as well as the Burke sign. What Gus just mentioned is absolutely correct. The sign, we wanted to do something, and I do remember that conversation, but we wanted to do something that would basically allow the sign to not be seen. And, talking about doing something with more things on it would actually draw attention to it. And what the sign companies really want to see is, their sign being very clear and unobstructed, if you will. And that's where the revenue side of it comes from. So we do have the same moniker on it with the Bell Gardens for branding. That's very important also. And but the sign, we wanted to really kind of lose that. And that's why it's actually a square box that's painted black. So again, I think it helps from the revenue side, and it really enhances that portion of the sign.
Yeah, the big black cat. Yeah, we all got it at the beginning. Right. I wouldn't say it blends in, but I mean, probably better than yellow, right? Okay, well, I mean, if that was the direction in which everybody feels comfortable in, then, and you said that we're avoiding that for cost-related reasons?
That would be correct.
What was the additional cost to make it more appealing for the residents?
Scott,
there was actually more cost involved to do what is proposed. It's basically a square structure that's going to cover the pole. So the pole at Clara Street is round, and this will be a square pole, which is framed out. It actually looks better, and again, will help the aesthetic side of that. Again, and it's kind of hard to explain, but if you look at different like backflow preventers, you always like painting those black because visually they blend in. As Gus said, that's a very good way of stating it. So there was some extra cost to make this thing a little bit more innocuous, I guess, from that perspective, because the view with somebody going 60 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour, or sometimes 20 miles an hour on the freeway, you're not going to really see it. And it was really important from our perspective, and I think from the sign company's perspective, that it would be unobtrusive for the people that were driving up and down Yabanera and Shull Street, from that perspective. So again, that was the rationale behind that.
I think if I can summarize, Scott, even I think just with what you're describing there's some economics at play as well. So the sign companies, they want you to notice the sign, not the structure that's below the sign, because that's where the ad revenues come from, the results come from. So I think in an effort here, we try to do an improvement over what we've done with the previous billboard to give it some additional aesthetics based on the requests and comments, but at the same time preserve sort of the economic basis for the sign as well, and not to draw the attention away from the actual sign down to the pole or the box in this case, but to drive the eyes up to the sign. So I think the way I would summarize this is sort of a compromise between an improvement in aesthetics while still maintaining the financial viability of the billboard.
Well put. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No? We will now open public comments for this item. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Thank you, Mayor. For members of the public that would like to provide a comment from Zoom, if you can please select the raise hand feature or *9 if you're calling in. I do not see any hands raised. And we did not receive any written communication.
If there is no objection by the City Council, I will close public participation. If there are no other questions or comments, I will close the public hearing at 7:45 p.m. May I have a motion?
Read a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second motion by Councilwoman Florence and a second by Councilmember Barcena. City Clerk, please conduct roll call vote.
Thank you. Council members Barcena,
Yes.
Councilmember Cortez,
Mayor, just to clarify, this motion is to close the public hearing or to both close the public hearing and approve the item?
To close the public hearing and approve the item.
Yes.
Councilmember Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
and Mayor Pulido.
Yes. We will now move to the remaining items on the agenda. Public participation is now open for items listed on the agenda. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Thank you, Mayor. For members of the public who would like to provide a comment on any item on the agenda or the remaining part of the agenda, if you would please select raise hand from Zoom or *9 from your phone. I do not see any member of the public raising their hand, but we did receive a written communication from 5 residents. Hector Ortiz, to all council members, would like to propose a change to the law of 3 to 4 units that are owner occupied to be excluded from the rent control laws that were enacted 2 years ago. This would help the small business owners that are struggling with the new laws and the COVID renters that have not paid rent for over 2 years. Thank you for your time and consideration of these changes. Monica Aguilar. Hello, City Council members. Thank you for making the right decision and approving rent stabilization ordinance number 925. This community is in high need of this change. I hope that you will all please approve the second reading of this ordinance and most importantly, take the steps for implementation in a timely manner. I would like to also comment and encourage the city to please make the rent stabilization ordinance accessible to the residents of Bell Gardens in both Spanish and English. It is critical to keep your constituents informed. Therefore, it would be helpful if the city can create a fact sheet on the important details of this ordinance, what this means moving forward for renters and property owners, and what their rights are under this ordinance. A workshop open to the community to do a breakdown of this ordinance would be very helpful. Thank you. Lilia Chavez. My name is Lilia Chavez. I have questions on rent control. We are families with needs. We are residents of Bell Gardens and contribute by paying taxes. Our money also counts. Doris Serrano. Hello, my name is Doris Serrano. I want to thank all of the council members who supported the 4% rent control measure in Bell Gardens. I'm a mother of 5 children. We are a family of 7 and we're a low income family. This rent control law benefits us greatly and I'm extremely grateful to the council about Bell Gardens because we have lived in Bell Gardens for 14 years and we have been victims of abusive owners who without scruples have mistreated us, and in order to force us to leave, they have arbitrarily raised our rent. Please keep your word of support for the community and do not desist from supporting the city you represent with your vote. Once again, thanks a lot. Blessings. And Maria Martinez, I support that the rent increase not be more than 4%. And that is the last of the written communication.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I received a message. I think someone is trying to provide a public comment, but they were not allowed or couldn't get through or something like that. Can we do one more check of the public comment?
It looks like we have two people. Is that person Maria Padilla or Edna Sandoval?
I think that's.
Okay.
It does appear that two people raised their hand virtually now. Would you like me to proceed? And
Yes, please.
person with Zoom ID, Maria Padilla, if you would please select the unmute feature on your Zoom and proceed with your comment. Persona con el nombre, usted puede continuar con su comentario.
Buenas noches.
Sí, buenas noches.
Mi nombre es María. Pues estaba en esta noche, pues, bueno, primero en mi auxilio. Mi participación esta noche es para compartirles algo. Mi hermano es padre soltero de 2 niños. Desde hace 6 años él se quedó lo responsable de sus hijos. Nunca pedí ayuda, ningún tipo de dependencia del gobierno. Y ahora está preocupado porque hace poco vendieron la propiedad donde él renta y tenía miedo de que le subiera la renta. Ya el dueño ha avisado que tal vez él no recibe de nadie y estaba preocupado. Pero hoy esta noche quiero darle las gracias a ustedes, a ustedes los miembros del concilio, por este control de renta que han pasado, porque gracias a eso el dueño dijo que ahorita va a parar de aumentarle la renta, y para eso para él es un respiro porque es papá soltero, él no recibe ayuda de nadie, que su trabajo y es muy dedicado a sus hijos. Yo de verdad quiero agradecerles infinitamente porque así como esto que les comento de mi hermano, también muchas familias han tenido ese respiro del control de rentas, aunque algunos también han sido recibidos de aumentos y se ha habido muchas cosas, pero yo hoy en especial quiero agradecerles a ustedes y pedirles que no claudiquen, que sigan apoyándonos, que esta ley que ustedes votaron sea para bien, porque la necesitamos mucho. Hay mucha gente que tiene mucha necesidad y aún está sufriendo los abusos de los propietarios por aumentos de renta, aún a pesar que está el congelamiento. Pero yo esta noche mi llamado es para agradecerles infinitamente la tranquilidad que han dado a muchas familias, no solamente a la familia de mi hermano. Que Dios los bendiga, que bendiga su camino, que siempre ustedes primero vean también por la bondad. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes. Que Dios los bendiga.
Gracias. Person with Zoom ID, Edna Sandoval, if you would please select the microphone icon on your device or select unmute.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Edna Sandoval. I am a community organizer at California Latinas for Productive Justice and part of the Unión de Vecinas of Bell Gardens. And I want to express our gratitude for supporting the ordinance and taking a big step to help the working class community here in Bell Gardens. This community has been working on this campaign for the last 2 years. In the ordinance is a step in the right direction. We also want to express our commitment to continue working with you all in the future and to support all the steps and efforts that may be necessary for the implementation. On a different note, I also want to share that this hasn't been an easy struggle, especially for the vecinas organizing in Bell Gardens. They have been supporting this ordinance and the campaign actively and publicly. And unfortunately, some vecinas, especially the ones that have been more vocal in public, are already facing retaliation and intimidation from people holding a rhetoric of classism and misogyny who chose to remain anonymous. California Latinas is paying close attention to this issue. However, we consider essential to make this kind of intimidatory strategy public because we call for a process that is informed, transparent, and in good faith. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Zoom ID Ramona Curiel, if you would please select your microphone icon. Thank you. You may proceed with your comment. You have 3 minutes.
Bueno, ¿me oyen?
Oh, sí, puede continuar con su comentario.
Sí, buenas noches. Estoy sin palabras viendo cómo sí han estado realmente en muchas formas diferentes, importantes, haciendo una gran diferencia para nuestro pueblo, nuestra comunidad, un mejor hogar para nosotros, nuestro Bell Gardens. Estoy muy feliz y orgullosa que nuestro consejo se esté encargando de nosotros, los inquilinos, aprobando el 4% en control de renta, causa justa, reubicación. Y vemos que esto solamente es un comienzo de un mucho mejor Bell Gardens. Hay muchos planes y todo está beneficiando a toda nuestra comunidad. Quiero darle las gracias a cada uno de ustedes. En la vida, en veces nos equivocamos, hacemos errores, somos imperfectos, pero hacer un error en la vida no es un problema. No corregirlo lo es. Entonces, muchas veces cantamos victoria antes de tiempo, ¿no? Y sí, nos equivocamos, pero realmente estoy muy orgullosa de nuestro consejo. Muy dedicados, gracias por su trabajo, su esfuerzo, todo este trabajo que tienen encima. Sé que es muy importante y es directamente para nuestra comunidad. Y primeramente quiero darle las gracias también pues a nuestro Todopoderoso por protegernos y hacer esto posible, por protegernos a todos nosotros en muchas diferentes maneras. Quiero agradecerles con todo el corazón de todo esto, de cada uno de ustedes, porque realmente sí, lo agradecemos mucho. Este cambio que está pasando es histórico, que nunca vamos a olvidar. Y todo el pueblo lo está viendo ya lo está sabiendo. Y estamos aquí todos muy agradecidos con todos los que están envueltos en esta comunidad, ya sea el Fire Department, el Departamento de Policía, el Consejo, el Departamento de Gustavo Romo, o sea, todos tienen un trabajo,
15 segundos.
tanto como también los dueños, los inquilinos, todos hacemos esta comunidad y si trabajamos juntos, vamos a hacer un mejor mañana. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Que Jehová los bendiga.
Okay, Mayor and members of the council, that was the last public comment with their hand raised.
Thank you. If there's no objection by the city council, I will close public participation. City manager, will you please give your report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Polito. I have a few items to mention. First and foremost, I think for the council here, we're already familiar, but for some members of the public, you may notice, and I would like to welcome, we have a new city clerk, Daisy Gomez. Daisy Gomez is a master municipal clerk, holds a bachelor's degree, master's degree, has over 20 years of experience working in the city clerk field and in elections. And most recently comes to us from the city of Santa Ana, where she served as the city clerk, and prior to that with the city of Santa Rosa as the city clerk. We're really happy to have her here. There was a recruitment that was put out, and just very pleased if you were put in writing the type of city clerk that you would be looking for on paper and in person. Daisy fits all of those bullet points. So very happy to have her here. Also like to mention we did have a cooling center open last week. The cooling centers in the past, we've had open for a day or two here or there when the temperatures have been 92, 93 degrees. As everybody knows, the humidity level has been as high as 80%, so it can make a 95-degree day feel like 105, if not more. And so just pleased to report that we've had as many as 30 people per day utilizing the cooling centers at the Senior Center and at Veterans Park. So I think that's a successful program. Also want to mention last Saturday, we had an immigration workshop. The Recreation Community Services Department held it in conjunction with the Mexican American Opportunities Foundation. So I heard positive results and saw some photos from the attendants. So just thank you to the Community Family Services Center within the Recreation Community Services for holding that. Just like to mention some upcoming things. This Thursday is the Fiestas Patrias from 6 to 9 at Veterans Park. We'll have the El Grito ceremony at 7:45 p.m. Looks like it's going to be as fun as the last few years. We have the same banda group out again, Consulate, etc. So please come out. Also this Saturday, we're hosting with Congresswoman Lucille Roybal Allard a passport fair. It's on Saturday from 9 to 3, and although the city offers passport services, this is an opportunity for somebody that hasn't had a chance to make it into City Hall Monday through Thursday, but still is looking to get a passport here in the near future. Appointments are required. So if you just Google search City of Bell Gardens calendar and click on Saturday, you can see a link there and you can register for a spot for this passport fair. Mentioning on the 24th, which is about a week and a half away, another pet vaccine clinic. And the last thing that I want to mention is just a reminder that we're in the middle of a no outdoor watering order. So this is for all the residents, businesses, and stakeholders in the City of Bell Gardens, including City Hall. If you look at the grass at the Veterans Park and out in front of City Hall, you'll see that it is browning to some degree. We've been assured that 2 weeks won't kill the grass, and when you start watering again, it will come back, and this rain has helped. So just thank you to those that are helping to conserve, and just appreciation for the next week until we get to the 20th and we're able to water at that time. That's all I have, Mayor Polito. Thank you.
We will now move to the consent calendar. Does any member of City Council wish to pull an item for separate discussion? May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar
I'll
items
move. I'll second.
2 to 11, please? So motion by Councilmember Barcena and second by Mayor Pro Tem Chavez. Right? City Clerk, will you please conduct a roll call vote?
Council members Barcena,
Yes.
Councilmember Cortez,
Yes.
Councilmember Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
and Mayor Polito.
Yes. Does any member of the City Council wish to make any changes to the appointments of the local commission list? Okay. We'll just table this item for the next meeting. Thank you. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 13?
Sure. Thanks again, Mayor Polito. This item was a request from a council member to provide a discussion on narcotics enforcement statistics, Bell Garden PD's Narcan program. So the police department has put together a presentation to share with the council as a receive and file. And with that, I will turn it over to Police Chief Fairfield.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager and Honorable Mayor and council members. Let me go ahead and start my slideshow here. Just a little background. Bell Gardens PD staff monitors, analyzes, and addresses national, state, local crime trends to develop and implement programs specific to those issues here in the city of Bell Gardens to make sure that we're up on the most recent trends and able to provide the service to our community that they deserve and expect. In 2020, Bell Gardens PD experienced an increase in drug seizures, drug use, and drug overdoses. Based on this information, we remain steadfast in our commitment to enforcing narcotic laws in our city, despite the fact that LA County District Attorney's Office refuses to file most of those charges due to DA Special Directive 20-007. In addition, Bell Gardens PD and myself personally have reached out to both the DA's office and to the Youth Diversion Development to try to find other ways to utilize diversion when it comes to narcotics and other nonviolent crimes. However, at the time we reached out several months ago, both the DA's office and YDD stated that there were no available resources in this area. I'll get back to that a little bit later on with some good news. So our Bell Gardens narcotic and illegal drug strategy is multi-pronged, but some of the most important things that we do is we'll continue to work with our schools to reach our most vulnerable community members, work with community partners and nonprofit organizations to educate our community, to offer treatment and housing opportunities for those suffering with addiction. We're looking to build new partnerships with LA County's Department of Youth Development, formerly known as YDD, to find alternatives to arrest and incarceration for juvenile offenders. We'll continue to work with the DA's office to adjust policies and processes to address the negative impact that illegal drugs are having on our residents and community. We'll work with the above groups to develop programs that focus on awareness, treatment, and rehabilitation, while ensuring that those who choose to victimize our community and young adults are held accountable. We'll expand our Narcan program, we have expanded our Narcan program to make it available for deployment for other city buildings, or from other city buildings, and by being able to be deployed by other department employees. Some of our new partnerships that we're looking to build and that we've reached out to most recently, the first one would be a partnership with the DEA, HIDA Overdose Justice Task Force. This group has investigators from both state, local, and federal agencies that specialize in overdose investigations, mostly pertaining to fentanyl and opioids, which has become a huge epidemic in our community, our county, and our country. We're looking to utilize training. They'll come in and train our personnel, provide us resources, provide us additional personnel if needed, and equipment. We have a meeting set with them in the next week or so. We also have reached out to and have began to formalize an agreement with Overdose Detection Mapping Application Program, which is known as ODMAP. This provides our investigators a real-time chart mapping system that shows overdose surveillance data across jurisdictions to support public safety and public health efforts to mobilize an immediate response to sudden increase in or spike in overdose events. Much like if you remember back in January of this year, Anaheim had a I believe they had 4 overdose calls within an hour that they believed were fentanyl or opioid. That allows us as departments and law enforcement and medical professionals to deploy strategies to be more effective in how we combat overdoses and the individuals supplying narcotics to our community. ODMAP can help determine areas of high impact and work with community partners to conduct targeted Narcan distributions in the area as well. Again, we've met with them and we'll be continuing to work on that partnership. Number 3, and I've mentioned them a couple times here, is a partnership we're looking to build with Los Angeles County Department of Youth Development, which was formerly YDD. We're in discussions to provide diversion opportunities for youth offenders who violate narcotics laws as well as other nonviolent offenses. This new county department looks to build on the county's Youth Diversion and Development YDD program model. It's been effective and in place here in some areas since 2017. However, just recently has been made available to us here in this area in the Southeast in Bell Gardens. The goal is to provide services to youth while holding them accountable for their actions and ultimately keeping them out of the criminal justice system. Number 4, which we were able to implement most recently, is, and we talked about Narcan, and earlier before this meeting, all of our council members and city manager went through a Narcan training to where now they're able to administer or deploy Narcan within the city. In 2018, Bell Gardens recognized that the opioid and fentanyl overdose and exposures were increasing at an alarming rate. Staff also recognized that our BGPD officers arrive ahead of LA County fire personnel on most calls for service, thus allowing us an opportunity to help save lives. Based on the above facts, in 2018 in December, we implemented phase 1 of our Narcan program. We deployed Narcan with every officer out on the street. Because Narcan administration is time sensitive, having our patrol officers equipped with these mobile kits has and will continue to save numerous lives. These kits contain Narcan in the form of a nasal spray that is immediately absorbed into the victim and counteracts the effects of an opioid overdose. Over the past several years, we have averaged about 3 to 5 deployments a month, approximately about 45 a year. Not only have we deployed those on, the majority of those, almost all of those were on community members in our community who were suffering from possible opioid overdoses. We've also, at least 2 to 3 of those deployments have been on our own personnel who have potentially been in close contact and ingested our fentanyl. Phase 2 of our Narcan deployment is most recently, as of last month, we purchased the kits that you see here in the photo that will be placed at several different locations within the city, that are staffed by city staff. Ford Park, Veterans Park, BG Golf Course, City Hall, and Public Works. Understanding that every second counts when someone is suffering a medical emergency as a result of opioids and fentanyl, we have expanded our program citywide. We will be training employees here in the next couple weeks from all departments, and they will be able to administer Narcan should they come across somebody who is having a potential overdose. This video is a video of a deployment that our officers had earlier this year. I'm sorry, in 2021. And it was captured on our video cameras. I'll go ahead and play it, but there's a couple things that stand out in this video. It's the care given by our officers, and it's also the camera is on a senior officer who is training some young officers. So I think it kind of is, it's encouraging to see what our training officers and how calm and collected they are also in these types of situations. So we'll play the video. There won't be any sound for a few seconds here, as it's there's a 30-second delay. The officer went to the trunk to deploy or to get his Narcan as he approaches. So that just, you can see that when the officers get there, the individual is in the vehicle, he is breathing. However, based on the information we received on the call for service and observation of the officers, they determined he was breathing and CPR wasn't needed at the time. They were doing some sternum rubs to stimulate him while they deployed it. And then once they noticed that it was responding, they noticed a little bit of a difference. They decided to deploy a second Narcan dose and then put him in a recovery position until paramedics got there. But you can see how much time would elapse if our officers didn't have that and we waited for fire to respond and get there. It's no fault of the fire department. It's just we're different. We deploy on different strategies, and our officers are out and about in the field and arrive at these things much quicker. So we've had the ability to deploy that numerous times and save several lives over since we've deployed it. We'll move on to the next slide here. These are narcotic arrest statistics in our community in Bell Gardens in 2021 and through September 1st of 2022. And you can see that we continue to make numerous arrests. Majority of the possession charges are not filed upon. You can also see that the largest number in 2021 was possession for sale and people who were preying on our community members by providing them narcotics. 2022, to this point, you can see 155 total narcotic arrests. The photos you see here are actual photos from our cases. This is an alarming statistics. These are also photos from our seizures here in the city. These are the majorities are pills, either Xanax or unknown counterfeit type pills. The one on the left is from, I can't see it because it's blocked. So you can see that Xanax, the number of Xanax pills last year, 169, unknown counterfeit, 291, approximately 460 grams. Total approximate weight of pills seized in 2021 was 1,243 grams or 2.75 pounds. You can see there in the yellow, average Xanax pill weighs between 0.32 grams and 0.50 grams. And if you jump over to the next one, you can see in 2022 to date, Xanax pills jumped to 878 pills. The unknown are the counterfeit pills, and this is one large seizure plus several small seizures of 114,000, over 114,000 pills. All this was recovered in our community. Total approximate number of pills seized of 115,000 plus. Total approximate weight of those pills, 311, over 311 grams, 311,000 grams, and or 686 pounds of pills. That's a lot of pills. This is a DEA fact. Through the DEA lab testing reveals that 4 out of every 10 pills with fentanyl contain a potentially lethal dose. So in the past, when people were selling narcotics to our community and to our residents, they were selling what they believed to be methamphetamine, cocaine. In the recent years, since the opioid and the fentanyl increased in our communities, they're now selling these counterfeit drugs that they don't know what are in them. The buyers don't know what's in them. But 4 out of 10 of those that contain fentanyl contain a potentially lethal dose. I think the thing that most parents need to be aware of, and the way individuals buy narcotics now and order narcotics is completely different than the way it was just 2 or 3 years ago. Prospective buyers now, in a lot of cases, they contact their drug traffickers and they set up these deals on social media apps such as WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram to arrange a drug deal, and then they move over to a payment site to collect payment and then delivery. So Venmo, Zelle, and Cash apps like that are how the individuals are paying for their narcotics. So a lot of times they don't even need cash on hand anymore. These stats on the right are from 2019, and they're alarming. But unfortunately, if we were to pull these stats in 2020, if we had these stats available from 2021 and 2022, they would blow these numbers away. 136 people die every day in 2019 of an opiate overdose. This is not uncommon. The issue of fentanyl and opioid overdoses and use is soaring across the country, and it's soaring especially in LA County and in our communities. The stats say that kids are 50% less likely to use drugs when they hear about the dangers of drugs from their parents. Unfortunately, only about 22% of kids report having talked to their parents about misuse of prescription drugs. Another huge problem is a lot of our parents are also addicted to opioids and narcotics through either from injuries where they took opioids and ended up getting addicted to it. But we see an increase now of individuals having narcotics in the home that are accessible by their kids, whether it's prescription meds in a medicine cabinet or it's illegal or counterfeit pills that are in the house, accessible to our youth. So with that said, I'll leave it there. We put out a post probably about 8 to 10 months ago, trying to warn our community about fentanyl and opioid usage and encouraging them to talk to their students or to their kids. We recently did a campaign on all the schools where we posted, middle schools and high schools, where we posted the One Pill Kills campaign. And we continue to work with our community and trying to educate them and trying to get our parents to engage and really understand that the impact they can have by just sitting down and talking with their kids. So if you have any questions, I'll take those questions.
Any questions?
Chief, I know that now we have 2 of our amazing officers at our schools. Do they also count with a Narcan kit? And have we had any situations at our schools that have called for it?
They have Narcan available to them. I don't know if they take it into the school or they keep it in their car. We probably should make sure that that we're doing that it's going into the school. It's a little bit difficult because obviously the kit would be in possibly in the office while they're across campus, but it's definitely a good practice, I think, for sure.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
You know, this is a very intense presentation for me because I grew up here in the street in Bell Gardens, skating around since I was a kid. I always mention that, and the chief is the only one that celebrates it. But joking aside, I feel like this just really hits somewhere very deep in my heart. And I appreciate all the work that's going into this. I appreciate this educational opportunity on how to apply the nasal spray. But I feel like it's a moment, an opportunity for us to, and I don't mean to sound too preachy, I apologize, really. I just really feel like I need to share this with you. It's a moment to really look at what's in front of us, right? We're talking about drugs that are 100 times more powerful than drugs that used to be like the worst drug when I was a kid. Like you would hear about heroin and you would be like, oh my God, who does heroin? Who knows? And now we have this substance that is the size of a grain of rice that is 100 times more powerful. We have death in our cities. And my question is, yes, we have the police working on it. We have the support. We're dealing with the issue at ground level, right? This is where we're seeing the effect, like the last phase of the effect of these drugs in our communities, right? But my question is, what are we doing really before it gets to that point, right? And I know that we're doing a lot. We're trying to do a lot, right? We're supportive of our Recreation and Community Services Department. We try to have programs for the community, but our efforts matching up to the 100x level that these drugs are becoming more aggressive? Are they matching up to the isolation that our kids are feeling with their environment nowadays, with social media and all of the different things that take over their environment? Are we matching up to that? And I think the facts and what we're seeing in our communities say very loudly that we are not matching that. And I feel that it's great that we're doing all this, and I definitely am grateful for all the work that's gone into this, but I wanna send a message out there to staff, people that have chosen to focus on their careers, whether you're in recreation, whether you're in law enforcement, whether you're in the community side of things. And I wanna say, are we giving it 100%? Are we giving it 1,000%? Because that's what we need to do. And I say that to my council members, to my colleagues. I've seen a lot of effort, but I want to see more, and I want to put more of from my side to make sure that we give these kids the opportunity to really escape these consequences in the future. So let's get creative. Let's fight as hard as they're fighting against us. And, you know, one thing that pops to mind right away is like Councilmember Flores is her involvement with the LGBTQ community and just trying to create a program there and giving it her all in that area. Like, I really appreciate that. I wanna see more of it. I wanna see more. And yeah, thank you for your time. I hope it wasn't too long of a rant, but I think this is a wake-up call to attack the issue, not only from this perspective, but from all of the available angles that are there for us. Thank you.
Anyone else?
It's really difficult for me to speak because I've been trying to hold my tears back this whole time because I see the numbers and I feel like I knew this information, but maybe we didn't do enough to put it out there. And, you know, obviously my cousin's case is a little special given his mental situations, him being on the spectrum and all, but even then, I mean, he was functioning enough to, I feel, have been able to know this information. And I feel like we definitely need to start some sort of campaign. I'm already pushing and doing my own efforts, and I appreciate the comments of my colleague Barsana to accompany, but most importantly, I'm grateful for all of my colleagues. Today, we all took a Narcan training and they could have not showed up. It was simple. Nobody demanded that they be here. So thank you guys. Thank you, Mike, for being here. Thank you, Chief, for making this possible, because as leaders, we expect people to want to help and save lives, but we need to be that example. We need to put ourselves out there. If we're the ones that are going to make the change, then it starts with us. It starts with us. And so thank you, everyone, for being here, for, you know, taking this training. Chief, I'm really grateful for your presentation. Thank you so much. I know that there's more recent numbers from the county that surpass these numbers, unfortunately, by 200%. The stats are astronomical. We need to destigmatize that. If we see someone on the streets and we see them laying down thinking that they're just sleeping, we need to think like, do they need help? Should I call somebody? Put in a phone call to PD, welfare check. You might be that person that saves that person's life. As we can see, in order to administer Narcan to save a life from death of an overdose, time's not on our side. So I guess my message with all of this is to please, you know, find it in your heart and, you know, take up that human piece of you and try to go above and beyond it and help someone. And if you don't want to go up to them yourself, then, you know, put in a phone call to PD. Our officers are more than able and willing to go check out on residents to make sure that no one else dies in the city of Bell Gardens from an opioid or fentanyl overdose. We have the resources, we have the knowledge. Now, as council members and as a councilwoman, I ask that if you're watching this and that you're hearing this, hear our plea, try to help someone. If you see something, say something. That's all I can say. You're the eyes and the ears of our community. You guys are out there. Hablen, por favor, si oigan algo, si está algo mal, ustedes se pueden salvar la vida a alguien. No piensen, oh, mire, es un drogadito. Usted no sabe de esa persona. Tal vez sea, tal vez no, pero detrás de esa persona hay toda una familia que lo ama y que lo quiere y que va a sufrir y anhelar el pasamiento de esa persona. Así que, por favor, sean humanos y te toquen el corazón y traten de ayudar. Hay otra gente que mientras nosotros estamos aquí trabajando para traer la educación, hay otra gente que se está encargando de traer drogas a nuestra ciudad. Siempre, constantemente. Tenemos enemigos que se hacen pasar como amigos tratando de traer drogas a esta ciudad. Tengan constantemente eso en la cabeza y sepan de que nadie a nosotros nos va a ayudar si nosotros no empezamos a ayudar ahorita y empezar a educarnos en lo que está pasando. No puedo decir más, pero quisiera decirles todo lo que sé para poder ayudarnos a mover a nuestra ciudad en adelante. But please, guys, if you see something, say something and be kind to one another, because I went over there and I asked somebody, why didn't you help my cousin? And he said, and I quote, si supiera que fuera tu primo, de volada la ayudó. And I just started crying because I'm like, why did he have to be my cousin for you to want to help him? Just help someone. Anyways, thank you so much, Chief.
Mayor, if I can real quick.
Yes.
Someone mentioned the stigma of this. We have to get rid of the stigma. And the thing that's different about this fentanyl problem is it's not a drug of addiction. A lot of people are dying who aren't addicted to drugs. They're trying it for the first time, right? Or they're taking what they think is a Xanax or something for anxiety that they picked up off the streets or off the internet, and it's laced with this poison that these people they're not selling drugs to our community. They're selling poison to our community, and it's different than what we've seen ever in narcotics enforcement. It's different than what we've seen in narcotics abuse and addiction. It's not a low income problem. It's a problem nationally, internationally, right? And it has nothing to do with race, status, health, any of those things. And people see someone who overdoses on, I'll use the word overdose, but they were poisoned with this fentanyl, right? And they think, oh, they have an addiction problem. Well, many times that's not the case. Matter of fact, a lot of times that's not the case. And the stigma that goes with that, unfortunately for these families, is that no, your child, your brother, your sister, your dad, your mom were an addict. There are addicts who die from it. And, there's some pictures here that more than likely that's what we're looking at here, but there's just as many people who die from this poison that aren't addicted to drugs. They're a one-time trier or two-time trier, right? And it's unfortunate that the stigma that these families have to live with as a result. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. Also, I want to thank our trainer. He's still here and he so graciously trained us. And I'm so sorry I forgot your name, but as Councilwoman Flores mentioned, today we were trained on Narcan, and we had one of our officers as well as someone from an exterior organization that came and showed us the way. And just to add to Councilmember Barcena's point about complementing this movement and complementing the efforts that our Bell Gardens Police Department is doing by expanding our Narcan access and resources, I was wondering if we can add possibly information. I don't know if there's any organizations that we can add to the Community Resource Center where our families can go and seek help when they have, teens that are falling into this route or that are seeking drugs or doing drugs. And sometimes I know our families don't know what to do. And they don't know who to reach out to. So even if we just have an informational sheet of numbers and nonprofits that they can reach out to, prevention is also part of this, but also the way that we're reacting. Thank you, Bell Gardens Police Department, for your efforts.
Any additional comments or questions?
Yeah, me.
Sure.
Briefly, thank you so much, Chief, for the presentation. It's definitely the stats are very, very alarming. And I want to echo the sentiments of all my colleagues on the dais in regards to this serious fentanyl narcotics issue and opioids. Before this, I wasn't too familiar with the concept. I had heard that there was an opioid addiction, I had heard it on national news, and I've seen it every once in a while on local news. But definitely, this is hitting home, right? Seeing these stats and the increase, it's over 100% increase from the years in the past to now. I think for me, when I look at these stats, I'm glad to hear that we're doing strategizing with schools and we're doing outreach. What I would suggest is, and I'm pretty sure this has already been done, but collaboration with our religious institutions here in the city, right? The fact that there's parents that aren't having conversations with their kids in regards to this, it's shocking. I remember as a kid, every time my mom dropped me off to go to school, same thing she would tell me: don't take anything. If anybody gives you a pill, don't take that. Report that. And that always stuck with me, right? It just surprises me that a lot of parents aren't having those conversations with their kids. I don't know why. I wonder why they're not having that conversation. And this sort of idea that we want to treat quote unquote anxiety, or we have to try something new. I think let's just stick with what we know works, right? And there's data and proof that can back it up. So I think overall, I like the idea of bringing something to the Community Family Guidance Center. I think that'd be great. Community Family Service Center, and a lot more needs to be done. I think this presentation overall should be done for the whole region, or the county per se, pertaining to their statistics and their data. And then at the same time, let's also have that conversation with the DA, right? You know, if it's in terms of funding or allocation of funds, there needs to be more attention to this. And it's clearly, you know, the effects that it's causing is that there's victims. I mean, there's predators trying to victimize our community, right? You know, something that always sticks to me is like, well, how did the drugs get here, right? I mean, where did they come from? You know, I don't know. I don't know anybody that owns a lab. I don't know anybody that owns a plane that brings it over offshore or wherever internationally. Well, how did they get here in the first place, right? Those social media streams of the communication efforts, WhatsApp, Signal, and the Cash App, Zelle, and all that, there's got to be ways for us to, you know, track that. You know, I just recently found out that they're starting to track gun sales, and they're categorizing gun sales as Visa and the Visa cards and stuff. Well, maybe we need to start doing something like that for Cash App, Zelle, and Venmo. You know, there's got to be a way to keep track of all this stuff. And if things look suspicious or funny, I mean, you know, I think we need to be paying attention to that. Anyways, again, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I have a question, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Just a question for the Recreation and Community Services Director. You know, the first thing that pops to mind, again, because I grew up here in Bell Gardens and all that, is teenagers. And I know that throughout the years, teenage programming or programs for youth of that age have been a little bit challenging here in the city. And I know that there's a, should I say, a slight deficit in that type of program. I feel like that's where we really need to kind of where our efforts could have a lot of impact. Is there anything going on right now? Is there anything in the works? Just curious if you guys have anything going on.
Yes.
Where you know, there's gonna be more contact with that age group that tends to be a little bit more susceptible to maybe that type of influence that may result in the consumption of these types of drugs.
Yes, Councilman Barcena, thank you for mentioning that and bringing that up. That's actually one of the first things I noticed when I came over to Bell Gardens was the lack of and need for specific programming to target the teen population. So I've already been in contact with the activities director at Bell Gardens High School. Today I went on a walkthrough at the Bell Gardens Boys and Girls Club with that exact intention in mind, is to develop programs to occupy our teens' time, to provide them with positive resources, outlets that they wouldn't have been afforded to otherwise. And so although it's a work in progress, it is definitely something that is on the radar for our department. And looking to, you know, the space is something that we're looking to find to provide them with their own spot. You know, it's very specific for teams. So the long answer was that. The short answer, yes, absolutely. It's definitely something we're looking to do. And thank you, Chief, for the presentation. It just solidifies the need for it even more.
Thank you, and please count with my support. I would love to see growth in that area of the department, and I'm sure maybe the rest of the council feels similar. Thank you.
Real quick, if I may, and for time purposes in the presentation, some of the other outreach stuff that we're doing that kind of pertains to that is with our resource officers at the school, set up meetings at PTA, go to PTA meetings with the parents, and have these conversations with parents. Our school resource officers are having these conversations daily, but really we need to get to the parents as well. So we're working with our school officials and our SROs to make that happen, so we can, you know, get out there and provide information and education.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief, I think you mentioned that you started this Narcan administration in 2017. Was it 2017?
2018, December of 2018.
Yeah. Thank you for implementing that from years ago and now expanding that program to our citywide to protect and help as many people as we can. I remember that a few years ago, there was this scandal, I want to call, in the city of Montebello, where a council member's husband was found cooking meth or, making all these drugs. And she argued that she had no idea that it was happening. And sadly, I think that's more common than not. And I think that our city and our police department is doing everything that we can within our limitations with legislation and such and protecting our city. So thank you so much for everything that you do, for this presentation, for the information, and for the continued support and protection. We really appreciate you.
Mayor,
Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry to cut you off. I asked our expert if he could just demonstrate on the camera the amount of deadly fentanyl, what it looks like on the vial and how they could be sprinkled on like a marijuana joint or anything else so that people get like a visual of how small that vial is. Of course. Go ahead, you can.
Honorable Mayor, city staff, city council, and chief. So as I did in a training part, this right here would be deemed a lethal dose of fentanyl if ingested, inhaled, or absorbed. So if you're able to see this here, camera-wise. So that's fentanyl right here, as the chief was mentioning, is it's getting packaged in Xanax and coming overseas and thus forth. And this would be a lethal dose of carfentanil, which is 1,000 times more potent than fentanyl itself and is used for veterinary medicine purposes.
Lo que está explicando, I know we have a translator, is that's, you said how much more stronger is the second one?
Carfentanil is about 1,000 times more potent than fentanyl itself.
And it could be,
But it's typically used for veterinary medicine. So carfentanil is used in veterinary medicine. It could put an elephant down for a surgical procedure or some kind of procedure that's needed for an elephant.
and if somebody was handed that, that's a fatal dosage right there, right?
Absolutely. Both of these are fatal doses. And as the chief mentioned during his presentation, what we're starting to see is fentanyl pills, the Xanax pills that are laced with fentanyl. And as he mentioned, it's that one hot dose, the 4 out of 10 pills that are created. It's that one hot dose that ends up causing the fentanyl overdose to occur. And again, completely unsuspecting, not for someone who's definitely an addict who's addicted to opioids, but it could be that first time, that second time user, as the chief mentioned, in regards to the overdose actually occurring and then succumbing from that.
And they can sprinkle that on a joint, right? On a marijuana joint, and it'll be enough to kill you, right?
Absolutely.
So my point is that I'm getting at is it could be used in it could be intaked in multiple different avenues.
Absolutely. And typically it's the ingestion part when it comes to the pills, and it's the smoking part, the inhalation part when it comes to actually smoking it. But what we're seeing with this national epidemic that we're seeing with opioids is you're seeing the pill form of it come out as well too. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Very well.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor.
No questions? Thank you very much.
May I have a motion to receive and file this report?
I'll go ahead and motion to receive and file.
A second.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Flores and a second by Councilmember Barcena. City Clerk, can you please conduct roll call vote?
Yes, Councilmember Barcelona,
Yes.
Councilmember Cortez,
Yes.
Councilmember Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez,
Yes.
and Mayor Pulido.
Yes. Public participation is now open for items not listed on the agenda. City Clerk, please announce the instructions for public participation.
Thank you. For any member of the public that's joined us by way of Zoom or by phone, if you would please dial *9 or select raise hand. We did not receive any written communication, and we do have one virtual participant. Zoom ID, City of Monterey Park. Ron, if you would please select the microphone icon. Thank you. You may proceed with your comment. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Polito, Mayor Pro Tem Chavez, Councilmember Barcena, Councilmember Cortez, Councilmember Flores. My name is Ron Bowe. I'm the city manager for the city of Monterey Park. On behalf of our city council, the community, the police department, and our staff, I would like to thank you, city council, city manager O'Kelly, police chief Fairfield, director of public works Chavez, city staff, and your loving community of Bell Gardens. You all gave us love when we were in pain, sorrow, and grief, as we all mourn the loss of Gardiel Solario. You told us to lean on you all and let you help us with the procession in the city on August 25th. You opened up your city to us, and we are forever grateful for your kindness and love. We are forever bounded by this tragic loss. City of Bell Gardens, thank you for being such a great city, and we can't thank you enough. I would do this in person if you'd allow me to, but I read your statement that it's just Zoom. I think it's much more empathetic in person, but I wanted to take this time as the city manager of Monterey Park, again, to just thank you all for everything that you've done for the city of Monterey Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, members of the council, that was the last speaker we have.
If there is no objection by the city council, I will close public participation. We will now move to council member comments. Councilmember Barcena.
I want to thank the council again. I know it's been a long meeting, so I'm not going to make it very long, but thank you for coming together and working to improve the lives of our residents. And I mean this for everybody here on this council, mayor, mayor pro tem, and council members. To me, it was one of the biggest challenges that I've had. And, you know, it was challenging when it comes to relationships, the people that I have to work to make things happen. Staff, I want to thank you very, very much for being patient and being flexible and working with integrity. I know that we had to push to make it happen, and you guys came through. The city manager did a great job as well. So thank you all for helping rent control pass in the way that it did. I think it's gonna benefit our residents immensely. And I do think it's a historical accomplishment. And I am proud of you guys. I am proud of your priorities and what you have chosen to do for those in our communities that are disadvantaged and don't have the same benefits that we have. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilwoman Cortez.
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, I do want to thank the city manager for the city of Monterey Park for coming on here and complimenting our staff. Gardiel Solorio was my cousin. He's also a resident of the city of Bell Gardens, but nonetheless, I think our staff really came through, not because he was related to me or just because he was, you know, a wonderful human, and because they would do this for any other law enforcement member or any other member that deserves that great honor. So I do want to thank our Bell Gardens Police Department, our Public Works, everybody who came through from the city, because my family received the best treatment. And it was such a wonderful procession, a wonderful movement, and the Neighborhood Watch for coming out to the services as well. Tonight, we also approved the second reading of our rent control ordinance, as Councilmember Barcena mentioned. And I do want to give direction. I did have a conversation with our community development director about this. So it might be a little bit redundant, but I would like to have 2 different workshops before the 30 days are over. So city attorneys, correct me if I'm wrong, but after the second reading, this law or this ordinance goes into effect 30 days from now, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So we can have 2 different workshops, one geared toward the landowners, because I believe it will be a different audience and a different message, and just they might have different questions, and a separate workshop for our tenants so that they can be informed, so that they know what the process is, how this will apply to them, And if we can possibly do that, I know it's a very short time frame, but I think it's important that we have these educational sessions before it goes into effect. There's a lot of confusion. And also we can just add a portion with regards to our rent freeze. We did receive some emails or messages from our residents with regards to the rent freeze and how some landowners are not abiding by it. So what's next? What's to follow? Who do they contact? And I know one of our speakers or one of our emails mentioned having a fact sheet. That would also be of great help just for the people who can't attend, so we can publish onto our social media. And just everyone is invited to our Fiestas Patrias event, which will be happening on Thursday. And we will have a Banda Imperio, so come ready to dance. I know our director and our chief of police are definitely ready, and I'll see them on the dance floor. But come and join us, have a good time with your family, beat the heat by being outdoors, and also just being outdoors, being at a park, being at an event increases our endorphins, which overall helps with all of our mental health. Mental health and wellness, I think, is something that we need to do a little bit more in our community. But that is it. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Council, for this great meeting.
Councilwoman Flores?
Yes, first I just want to touch real quick on the rent control. As you guys, as Councilwoman Cortez and Councilman Barcena mentioned, today it's the second reading of the rent control. And we voted on it, but it took a lot of work from multiple different parties. Specifically, I'd like to thank our city attorneys and most importantly, Gus Romo, who took all of the hits from everyone left and right, messages. And Gus, I'm sorry to tell you, but this is just the beginning. So mental health care for you should be priority, because I feel like this is going to get really difficult. But you have our full support, and I'm really proud of all the work that you do here, Gustavo. Thank you so much, wholeheartedly. I feel like the whole city runs, effectively because you're here, and thank you for being able to address all of our concerns individually, and everybody always feels like you give us that respect and that you address things in a timely manner. So thank you, Mr. Romo, for that. On that note, moving forward, today is National Police Women Day, and it's celebrated nationally every 12. So today I want to celebrate all of the women of the Bell Gardens Police Department. Chief of Police, how many women officers do we have, female?
This time we have 3. We have Officer Navarez, Officer Valenzuela, and Detective Martinez.
Well, today is their day. So girls, thank you so much for joining the biggest boy club out there. I know it's not easy, and I really do salute you for all of the contribution that you do for all the female police officers. There's a lot of young girls in our city looking up to you. So we congratulate you, and I offer my full support if ever any of you ladies are to need anything. And just to touch base, I want to thank Azucena Maldonado. She recently helped me put a golf clinic for all of the young women here in the city of Bell Gardens. It was absolutely free, and we had professional golfers. We also had a member of PGA, right? PGA. And it was amazing. And on that note, I also want to thank Liz Nava for making sure that everyone had a great time. Like I said, this may or may not be the first and last time these young women golf, but they had a great time. They loved the food, the welcoming that everybody was offering. And I think that day we made a solid 35 new golf girls. I don't think it was the last time. I'm sure some of them they loved it and they're gonna come back. And I'm really grateful for being able to empower these young women. And with that, I just want to say thank you to my colleagues. As you guys may or may not know, this is campaign season, and as you can tell, we've been very peaceful. Everybody here is just trying to advocate for the best of the community, and I really do appreciate the camaraderie and the respect from all of my colleagues. It's not, people think that politics has to be so disruptive, but it really doesn't have to be that way. It's a disgusting form of way that it's been established, but it doesn't have to continue that way. And I really do appreciate all the partnership amongst the council. And with that, I'd like to wish everybody a good evening. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Mayor Pro Tem Chavez?
Briefly, I just want to echo the
You're muted.
Thank you so much for
briefly, thank you so much. Just want to echo the sentiments of all my colleagues. Thank you so much for passing rent control. I really appreciate it. It was a fight that took about 2.5 to 3 years. And it's really great to have seen it flourish here. So now we just pretty much wait for the next 30 days, and hopefully it'll all go through. I feel that we should also be ready in a case where there's potential other special interests that might try to come and prey on our community. We've seen it in other cities, like the city of Santa Ana, where certain organizations that are against the idea of rent control have stood outside, grocery stores and have tried to get signatures to try to repeal it before going into effect. So at that moment, if that moment were to come up, I definitely want to be made aware of it, and I hope that we could all unite and fight against that special interest here in our city. Briefly, just want to go ahead and say on August 27th, we had a tenants' rights workshop here at Ross Hall. It was really well attended. It seemed like we had folks from all over the region, not necessarily here in our city of Bell Gardens. I want to go ahead and thank the organizations that were a part of it, ECR's Communities for Environmental Justice. I know I saw some of the vecinas were there as well, and Communities for a Better Environment. So I really appreciate the presentation. We had LAFLA present to assist folks in, with legal advice at that moment. So really appreciate that. Following that, later that week, on September 1st, SELA Collaborative, Southeast Los Angeles Collaborative, had a regional elected officials convening in the city of Southgate, where we described the region's agenda. It was really well attended. We had folks from the Speaker's office, our State Senator Lina Gonzalez's office, obviously SELA Collaborative staff, and various elected officials and community department members from other cities. So we talked about transportation, we talked about environmental justice, education, and overall just collaboration as an effort within our region, right? I think for the longest, it's been very tough for our cities to really get momentum. And the fact that we're all supporting one another and siding by one another, it'll definitely get us more attention. So really appreciate that opportunity to be a part of that. Hope everyone had a great Labor Day. That was a week ago. It was a short week. And it was great to have Labor Day. Let's see. But last week we had Cal Cities, California League of Cities conference. It was really well attended. We had folks. Last one we had, I believe, was in Northern California. So it was great to have folks come down to our region. It was held in the city of Long Beach at the Long Beach Convention Center. I got to hear from Attorney General Rob Bonta at the LA Division Luncheon. I asked him a question about DA's positions and his effort to work alongside all different county DAs and how his approach is. I think overall he's committed to the people of California and he wants to uphold the law. We also got to listen to our keynote speaker, Jill Ellis, who was a Women's World Cup coach. She's the only coach to ever have won back-to-back Women's World Cup. So that is incredible. Her story and how she began, she's originally from the UK. It was really great, inspirational. I attended I attended a couple sessions. One of them was with the famous mayor, Michael Tubbs from the city of Stockton. His discussion was in regard to ending poverty in California cities and his approach, right? Giving folks assistance, literally giving folks cash. He was the founding member for Mayors for Guaranteed Basic Income. It was really interesting hearing how different cities have approached this. He shared the panel with another mayor from the city of South San Francisco, and how they went ahead and about implementing guaranteed income for their residents, right? This idea or this concept of giving the most vulnerable in our city $500 and where will they use it, right? To pay their bills, to pay rent, to pay, their car's registration, you name it. And they were able to collect data in which it informed them how they went, where they spent most of that money. And some of the results or some of the surveys indicated that by allowing them to have that extra funds, it allowed them to spend more time with their kids, right? It allowed them to be able to look for another job and potentially go get an interview, right? Because they couldn't miss a day at their original job. So it's definitely something that I feel that we should explore, but overall it was great. And I'm very interested in asking him more questions about how to make that a successful program here in our city. Obviously we had the expo. It was great, really well attended. There was folks from everything you can name, from park equipment to attorneys and other agencies. Finally, the last one that I do want to highlight is there was a discussion regarding to creating a youth-friendly city, right? And they quote unquote, they put, it's not just about the money, right? What can we do to implement more engagement with the youth? And something that was brought up was potentially creating a youth council member sitting on the city council with all of us, right? I think that'd be something that is very interesting. Obviously, they wouldn't have a regular vote like us, but their vote would be advisory. It's a similar concept to community colleges where they have student trustees that they do provide advisory votes. But overall, they'd be interested in explore that and get the youth engaged here in our city with government specifically. With that said, I'll go ahead and finish my comments. Thank you so much, everyone.
It was a long meeting. Thank you so much for engaging. Have a great night, and we'll see you on Thursday during Fiestas Patrias. Thank you. Oh, no, sorry. And if there's no objection by the City Council, I will adjourn the City Council meeting at 9:04 p.m. Thank you.